I've been taking creatine for a while now, and to be honest, I don't know if I've really noticed anything other than a slight increase in the appearance of a little more muscle. That being said, it wasn't until recently I took the time to really dig into how creatine really works, discovering pretty quickly that I probably wasn't doing it right, at least for my unique lifestyle variables. So my goal today with this powwow is to save you some time. Hopefully, because this may very well be the best longevity supplement you're not taking. Here's what you need to know. Yo! Welcome back to another week of How to Health. My name is Kevin. I run liftingbalance.com, where we take aim at all things health and longevity and do it in an odd, weird, interesting, and highly sarcastic way. Today, we are paying tribute to those visionaries on Muscle Beach, because they may have been longevity scientists without even knowing it, as it was in the 1970s and 80s with the advent of the muscle revolution that the supplement creatine really began being studied. And now, 50 years later, we're not just talking about it as a way to improve muscle size and performance. Ironically, that's proving to be one of the least cool things it does. That is, if you think improving energy dynamics and thus longevity is cool, like me. And the best high-level way I can think to describe this compound's impact is probably in the very scientific terms of being a magic-like potion for our mitochondria, especially under stress. And if you've been living under a rock and aren't aware about how much we love mitochondria around these parts, the Mitochondria 101 playlist is waiting for you. And the rationale for this obsession is really quite simple. These little buggers are the foundation of all things cellular health, modulating not only energy, but signaling, recycling, and even gene expression. Thus, a healthy you cannot exist without healthy mitochondria. So let's walk through how exactly creatine tickles those mitochondria. What exactly are these new emerging benefits? Benefits, might I add, that convinced me to up my daily dose. And speaking of dose, some dosing strategies, as well as some need-to-knows for this supplement to make an impact on your life, making you a more physically able and cognitively capable you. So let's dive in. First, with the obligatory background. Creatine is actually naturally occurring within our body, being synthesized in several organs, including our 5-pound mushy membrane. However, primarily made in the liver. And for the average person living the average life, it's estimated that this compound is consumed by the body at around 1 to 3 grams per day, with its consumption mainly happening in our most energy-demanding lean tissue, like muscle. And there's a pretty damn good reason for this, because this compound is critical in storing and releasing cellular energy, and does some really cool things when it comes to cellular energy dynamics, aka tickling our mitochondria, which is likely where much of its wide-reaching biological benefits are coming from. Now, to get a little sciencey for a moment, at a high level, creatine allows our cells to more quickly and efficiently restore their main energy substrate, and the energy substrate of all things cellular life, ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, giving our cells a greater ability to perform, especially under stressful circumstances, like exercise, but also other things, which we'll talk about later. And at a high level, here's how it goes down. When creatine enters the cell, it is converted into phosphocreatine via an enzyme called creatine kinase, which ultimately serves as a rapid phosphate reservoir to replenish ATP. So, during energy-demanding activities, phosphocreatine donates its phosphate group to adenosine diphosphate, ADP, to regenerate adenosine triphosphate, ATP, which helps maintain ATP levels when immediate energy is needed, and allows a cell to perform at a higher level for longer. However, that's not all. This creatine phosphocreatine system also acts as an energy shuttling system, moving high energy phosphates from mitochondria, where ATP is produced, to other cell sites with high energy demands, like myofibrils in muscle cells or synapses in neurons, thus enhancing both overall energy output and energy efficiency. Pretty badass. I know. This is one of the reasons that creatine is thought to be so successful when it comes to enhancing muscle function, strength, performance, and hypertrophy. It allows the muscle to work longer, thus creating the extra physiological stress to drive the additional adaptations, all while promoting a faster overall recovery, allowing the individual to train again sooner, which I gotta say is a pretty compelling story, especially since we know that our critical for longevity skeletal muscle begins to naturally deteriorate as we age, a condition known as sarcopenia, ultimately becoming a major risk factor for disease and even death. Yeah, the D word, with the only proven way to combat this natural decline and not lose it being using it. And since it has also been observed that we humans experience a natural decline in creatine levels as we age, adding some externally via supplementation can most definitely help the cause. And since we're speaking of our structural self, I think it's a good time to begin transitioning to some of the lesser talked about benefits of creatine, as one of the emerging benefits is seeming to be a positive effect on our bone. Another thing that deteriorates as we age, as a meta-analysis combining the results of multiple scientific studies found that resistance training and creatine supplementation can not only improve lower and upper body strength, muscular endurance, and increase free fat mass, but also increase bone mineral density, not only by the indirect mechanism of creating more muscle, which then stimulates the need for stronger, more dense bone to support it, as we've previously discussed here, but also by having a direct effect on the bone cells themselves, as emerging studies suggest that creatine may impact bone metabolism, modulating osteoblasts or bone building cells in a densifying way and downregulating osteoclasts or bone deteriorating cells. Now, this comes with one big caveat: the dose, as it seems that it takes a much larger dose of creatine to fully saturate the muscle so the bone can start getting its share. And this dose seems to be in the range of 10 to 20 grams a day. That being said, there is no denying, if you can positively impact your bone and muscle, you are solving a major part of the living long and finishing strong equation, aka the longevity equation. And if creatine can consistently help with that, it puts it in a special class of longevity modulating compounds. But that, my friends, is not where this potion of a compound stops, because the next stop is across the blood-brain barrier and into the brain, where billions of mitochondria-dense, energy-demanding neurons reside, and where more and more studies are implicating creatine in brain development, function, and aging. First, by supporting the obvious high energy demand of neuronal signaling, synaptic transmissions, and other energy-intensive processes within our cranial cabinets. But studies have also displayed that oral creatine supplementation improves working memory, processing speed, and executive function in tasks requiring intense mental effort, suggesting neuroprotective benefits as well. How, you ask? One big way being through stabilizing mitochondrial function, reducing oxidative stress, and protecting neurons from damage caused by reactive oxygen species. Well, wouldn't you know, mitochondria efficiency strikes again. And emerging research even suggests that it could go as far as improving mood and reducing symptoms of depression, which may be happening via a number of different potential mechanisms, including its ability to reduce the common dysfunction which leads to inflammation in the brain. Very cool, I know. but important to remember, still emerging. So hopefully more to come on that soon. Now, just like the bone, there are also some caveats here. Specifically, again, the dose. As the data to date suggests that the average person may need closer to 20 grams daily to sufficiently begin saturating the brain, while also displaying that creatine's effects in the brain are more profound when the brain is under some form of stress, particularly in conditions of mental stress, sleep deprivation, or high cognitive load. So, there may be a time and place to up your dose. For example, go from 10 grams to 20 grams a day when you are cramming for a big cognitive task, throwing off your body's circadian rhythms like when traveling across countries, or just following a short, poor night's sleep. Like all things biology, the context makes the difference. And obviously more research is needed on all of this. However, it is still pretty damn interesting, especially when you add that this supplement has also shown promise in helping properly modulate the expression or methylation of our genome, and upside when it comes to cardiovascular health, both with the heart itself and the 60,000 miles of supporting blood vessels. And you remember how important mitochondria are to those two things from this video here. Oh yeah, all this while being the most studied and analyzed supplement on the planet, which we can once again salute the boys and girls of Muscle Beach for. Thanks, Arnold. Now, when it comes to the million-dollar question, how much you should take, it, as you can imagine, depends on many variables such as lifestyle, age, stress, and your goals. So, let's talk about it. Starting by clarifying one big piece of information, which is that basically all of the research that has been done on creatine has been done on creatine monohydrate. And in this supplement abundant social media marketing world, there are various different forms and claims popping up all the time. So be careful out there. It's also important to know that you do get creatine from food as well, specifically animal-based products with servings of fish, red meat, and chicken providing around 1 to 3 grams. So depending on your diet, you could already be consuming a fair amount of exogenous creatine, which is great. However, if you want to supplement that further and potentially tap into that brain and bone boosting zone, creatine monohydrate should be your standard, taking it with room temperature water or food once or twice daily. My personal preference is the pure, high quality vegetarian source of creatine monohydrate from CreaPure, which is a tested and validated form made from a group in Germany that has been at it for decades, and a form that many of the top supplement brands proudly resell, which you can see called out on the label. So, another reason to read those labels. And when it comes to the dosing research, thus far, it seems that the biggest beneficiaries of a traditional dose like 5 grams a day are first, people who don't get any creatine in their diet, aka people following a vegetarian or vegan diet, and second, people who are consistently stressing themselves out, whether it be in a good way like exercise, or a not so good way, like chronic cognitive stress and sleep deprivation. So if you fall into one of these two groups, or both, a daily supplementation could be very beneficial. Now, the data also indicates that since a majority of circulating creatine quickly gets sucked up by lean tissue like skeletal muscle, a higher dose in the realm of 10 to 20 grams a day may be needed to saturate the muscle and leave some for absorption into the bone and brain, ideally being consumed within an hour or two pre or post exercise. And one of the things that makes this supplement even more magical is the relative benign side effects, the worst typically being some digestive discomfort. So if you experience this, splitting your dose throughout the day and taking it with food is probably a good idea. And even if you don't have GI issues, splitting your dose to balance out saturation could be beneficial too, especially if you're taking a higher dose. For example, I'm currently taking around 10 grams in the morning about an hour before I work out, and then an additional 5 grams about 8 hours later before my evening walk, making my current dose around 15 grams daily. Another thing to keep in mind is to avoid taking your daily dose alongside a large amount of caffeine, as these two molecules tend to have opposite effects on some cellular signaling pathways that could potentially blunt creatine's uptake. So take your dose a good 2 hours before or after you shower in caffeine. Lastly, and potentially most importantly, the mountains of research have consistently shown that this supplement works its best when combined with exercise. So making an effort to move that badonkadonk and do it in a consistent way will really put your body in a position to unlock the potential of this mitochondria potion and help you feel how you're capable of feeling, not only here and now, but also over the long run. With that, I'd love to hear from you on what your current strategy looks like and what benefits or side effects you've been experiencing along the way. So please drop them in the comments below. And let's get out there and start stressing ourselves out already. In the good way, that is, not the bad way. Although, if it is the bad way, just remember, creatine's got your back there too. Just saying.